Confronted my cheating dad about his endless half-siblings for me. Now my oldest half-sister makes school unbearable by calling me out. I'm 18, female, in my final year of high school, and despite how much I love my dad, there's no hiding the truth. He's a serial cheater. I hate that side of him. My mom hates it too. Their fights over his cheating have been epic, but somehow, they always end up forgiving each other and moving on, leaving me with this complicated mess of feelings. Throughout my life, I've watched my dad bring more and more half-siblings into the world. There are 4 already, with a 5th soon to arrive. The girl carrying baby number 5 is only 6 years older than me. The oldest of my half-siblings is Eliza, who's 15, and the youngest is just 2. Every time I think about it, something inside me twists. I've told my dad again and again that I wish he could just be faithful, that the best memories I have are simply of him, my mom, and me, just the 3 of us, a family. But he never changes. And somehow, after I let out all my anger, he looks at me with pride, as if he's proud that I stand up for myself, telling me no one will ever push me around. He makes me feel good for being mad at him, which just confuses me even more. Up until recently, I didn't really care that he spent time with his other kids, or paid for them, or did his dad duties elsewhere. That changed when Eliza, the oldest, transferred to my school. She only started attending a few weeks ago after being in the hospital, but it didn't take long for people to notice things. Some of my friends started whispering, "She looks like me, she shares my last name," and my dad was seen with her at the principal's office. They asked if she was my cousin. I always said no, but I'm sure Eliza is getting the same questions from her side. She actually came up to me twice, asking if we could hang out, hoping I'd be her big sister. Twice, I told her no. Apparently she cried the second time, and my dad, of course, had to tell me that. He said I didn't have to do anything for her, just be polite, but if she told people about our connection, I couldn't deny who she was. He says I should get to know her and the others, but I just want nothing to do with them. I don't want people knowing we're sisters. It's not their fault for being born, but I shouldn't have to interact with them just because my dad can't stop cheating. They're his responsibility, not mine. I didn't even realize this was something my dad would force on me. I'm pissed but also feeling guilty. Then, yesterday, we had our family counseling session. I normally love going because it helps clear the air, and it makes me feel like maybe, just maybe, my family is like everyone else's. My mom couldn't come because my cousin was giving birth, so it was just me and my dad. We've done these sessions alone many times, so it wasn't a big deal, until I walked into the counselor's office and saw Eliza already waiting inside. For some reason, seeing her there made my insides churn. I still participated, but it was hard. I couldn't talk, emotions just bottled up, and the counselor picked up on it, but my dad seemed clueless. I felt like Eliza was silently accusing me, painting me as the bad guy for not wanting to hang out or let people know we're sisters, but I never stopped her from telling people. I just don't want to. After we got home, my dad asked me why I was so quiet. All the bottled up anger just exploded. I yelled at him, telling him he shouldn't have brought her without asking, that he broke my trust. I could see I hurt him, but I just went to my room and cried into my pillow. Later, he came in, but I pretended to be asleep. He kissed me on the forehead and left, and somehow that made me feel even worse. I haven't seen him all day. He's off visiting my baby half-brother. My mom told me maybe I shouldn't have used the words I did since I'm 18 and expected to handle things better now, but I can't help thinking I'm just a giant jerk for how I acted. Still, even with all this, I love my dad so much. He's always been a really good dad to me, if only he could be faithful. Update 1. Just to give an update, my dad didn't come home all day Saturday because my baby half-brother, Ilia, who's only 2 years old, was in the hospital. Things are really bad, worse than any of us expected. The day after Dad finally came home from the hospital, we had a long talk about everything that's been happening. I had a lot on my chest, and I'm grateful to everyone who helped me see that it was okay to feel upset, but that I needed to consider Eliza too, because she was hurting as much as I was. Dad started by apologizing for not telling me he was bringing Eliza into our counseling session. He promised he'd never spring something like that on me again. I apologized too, for all the swearing I did when I yelled at him, and he forgave me instantly. Then he asked me if I understood now that Eliza was hurting just as deeply. I told him I finally did, and he suggested maybe the 2 of us should have our own counseling sessions. I told him I'd think about it. The next thing he told me broke me. There's a real chance my baby half-brother might die. Dad had already talked about it with my mom and with his mistress, but he specifically came to me for permission, because he knew he'd hurt me the most. He wanted to know if it was okay for him to go to inpatient rehab for sex addiction, which I didn't even know was a thing. Of course, I said yes. I hope it helps him, even though I know I'll miss him terribly while he's gone. Just like a few of you suggested, I agreed to counseling with Eliza on Wednesdays. We've only had 1 session so far, and even if we're not suddenly friends, I think she finally gets why I feel the way I do. She apologized for not realizing how hurt I was by our dad. When she told me that being hospitalized made her feel normal for the first time, because Dad visited her every day, I felt this wave of guilt and apologized for never really caring about her pain. She's still upset that I won't let her tell people we're sisters, but she said she's okay with it if we keep going to counseling. Maybe we'll even get close one day. Maybe we won't, but at least we won't hate each other anymore. I also took Eliza with me to visit our baby half-brother in the hospital. His mom seemed genuinely surprised we showed up. She knows I've never liked her, and I'll admit I'm still not ready to forgive her. But seeing Ilia lying there, I realized how cute he really is, and I regretted not spending more time with him before things got so bad. Honestly, I originally made this account just to vent about my half-siblings, but everything that's happened has completely changed my perspective. Just to clarify, I, 18F, have never been close to any of my half-siblings. My dad is a serial cheater. I have 4, soon to be 5 half-siblings because of him, and I always thought I wanted nothing to do with them. But after the last 2 weeks, my mind has started to shift. I'm not friends with any of my half-siblings, but I've started counseling with Eliza, 15F, my younger half-sister, and we're trying, at least. Our youngest half-brother, Ilia, 2M, got a terrible infection and had been in the hospital for just over a week. When Eliza and I visited him that Wednesday, his mom, 24F, looked at us like she didn't even believe we were there, since she knows how I feel about her. Today, my dad told me Ilia had gotten even worse. I just feel lost, like there's no one I can talk to about this. I can't talk to my mom, my dad seems so emotionally exhausted, and I'm not close to anyone else. The only person who might get it is Eliza, but I feel sick, anxious, scared. I never even let myself think of Ilia as family. I honestly didn't believe I loved him. But now that he's fighting for his life, I'm terrified in a way I can't put into words. Then the worst happened. My baby half-brother died just hours before midnight, so he didn't even get to see Christmas. Dad hasn't stopped crying, and I can't talk to him. My mom doesn't care. The only other person who really knew him is Eliza, and the moment he stopped breathing, she just left and hasn't responded to me since. I can't process this. I didn't even think I liked him or loved him. I thought I hated all my half-siblings. I hated his mom for trying to take my dad, but now it just feels like I missed out on the small amount of time he had, because I was so spoiled and selfish. I got him a teddy bear for Christmas. He'll never get to play with it. I wish I could have seen him happy, because I was wrong, he did matter. When I go to my aunt's house tomorrow, I'll have to pretend nothing happened for my mom, but I can't stop crying. He was so cute. He deserved a better sister than me. They all do. I miss you, Ilia. I wish I could hold you again. So, my baby half-brother Ilia died 3 days ago, just before Christmas. I hate that I have to be the one to say it, but no one else is listening. Ilia's mom was a TA at my school. That's how she knew I was good at speeches. I even won an award for best speech in grade 9. Yesterday I went with my dad to see her, because I just felt so broken after losing Ilia, and I know she's hurting even worse. Dad said he'd handle all the funeral costs and arrangements, but he brought up that it's our family tradition for the father's oldest brother and nephew, if there is one, to speak at funerals. Since my other half-brother is still too little, my dad suggested I should give the speech, since I'm the oldest. Ilia's mom's face actually lit up when he said that. I said yes, because it seemed like the right thing to do. But now, I'm scared out of my mind. I honestly don't know what I should talk about or even how to start writing it. I know it means a lot to my dad and to Ilia's mom. It would mean even more to Ilia. But every time I try to start writing, I just end up crying. I even tried talking to my mom, even though she hates hearing about my half-siblings. She told me that since I committed, I had to do it and uphold my father's family tradition the best I could. Dad won't answer his phone, but I know he'd be disappointed in me if I backed out. I just feel like such a colossal asshole for not wanting to do this. I'm sorry for rambling, but I just needed to get this out. Right now, I'm scared and confused and feel like I'm not enough for my family. For the record, I'm a girl, but I'm the oldest, which is why Dad asked me to stick as close to the tradition as possible. I get it, this isn't an excuse for anyone to send anything messed up my way. I wish someone would listen. Update 2. I wasn't planning on sharing this, especially after some of the nasty messages I got because of the last time I talked about all this. But my therapist encouraged me to do it, said it might help to find closure, so here I am. When everything with Ilia happened, I finally admitted to my dad that I was terrified of giving a speech at his funeral. Honestly, I didn't even feel like I deserved to, not when I barely knew Ilia. My dad was kind about it. He told me it was okay and said I could just write something down. If I wasn't up for it, he'd even say it for me. I sat there for ages and couldn't think of a single thing that felt right. So, in the end, I just wrote down a Buddhist prayer that my mom taught me after her cousin died. Ilia's mom was fine with it, and told me I could say it in Chinese if I wanted. When the day came, I stood there at the funeral, Dad and my half-sister Eliza right beside me in case I froze up. It actually helped that the room wasn't full, since it was just after New Year's and only a few people were around. I said the prayer in Chinese first, then in English. I could only hold it together on that stage for maybe 2 minutes. The moment I finished, everything just crashed down on me and I broke down right there. After that, the rest of the funeral passed in a blur of tears. I honestly don't remember much except going home and falling asleep in my mom's lap, still crying. The very next day, my dad left for inpatient rehab. It's been strange at home with just mom and me, especially because it's still so hard to talk to her about Ilia. Eliza keeps asking me to introduce her to our other half-siblings, Sean and Mateo, but I keep putting it off. The guilt eats at me, especially since Ilia looked so much like Matteo did as a toddler. I know I've been awful to all of them, but I agreed to do it, so I guess I'll try to suck it up and maybe see if I can make it happen next week. I also visited Ilia's mom when she reached out to me. It was awkward at first, mostly because I'd spent so long resenting her, and now I just felt terrible for ever feeling that way. She surprised me by giving me some of Ilia's ashes in a small vial, as a thank you for loving him. I don't feel like I deserve that at all, but I'm keeping it in my room for now. I also heard you can get ashes infused into jewelry, so once my dad's back, I'm planning to ask him if we can do that. I want something I can wear every day, something that actually means something. Maybe that's what closure really is, being able to hold on to the people we miss, even when they're gone. I hope that brings some closure for anyone who's been following all this, too. And honestly, thank you to the people who reminded me that I didn't owe anybody a thing. Update 3. After losing my baby brother not long ago, I kept clinging to this hope, even if I don't fully understand it, that he'll come back, somehow, somewhere, even though I'll never know who or what he'll become. My mom is Buddhist, so technically I am, too, though I've never been particularly religious. We only go to the temple once a month, and honestly, I've skipped more times than I can count. Still, I've been searching for anything that might help me make sense of my brother's death, any sign Ilia might return one day, and I wrestle with whether I've got the whole thing wrong. Sometimes I wonder if there's something I should be reading, something that would make any of this easier to understand, English or Chinese, it doesn't matter to me. Reaching for connection and comfort, I decided to take Eliza to meet our other half-siblings, Sean and Matteo. I brought her to see Sean first. She's small, just turning 7, and I'd always been so cold to her, resentful just because she existed. I hadn't seen her since August. Hoping to make it up to her, I brought some toys I thought might be good for her age. When Sean saw me, she ran up and hugged me with so much love and excitement, showering me with kisses. This little girl, who I'd treated so poorly in the past, didn't care, she just loved me for being her big sister. I nearly broke down crying right then and there. When I introduced Eliza and handed over the toys, Sean barely seemed to care about the gifts, she was so much more interested in finally meeting her other sister. Sean's mom must have noticed how close I was to tears, because she quietly pulled me aside and let me cry in private. I'd been mean to her before as well, but all she said was, if I miss Ilia, I should come see Sean more. That really stuck with me. Playing with Sean, carrying her on my shoulders until my back hurt, it dawned on me how much she'd grown since August. And how much of her life I'd missed, just like with so many of my siblings. I started visiting Sean once a week before my counseling sessions with Eliza, and it's been honestly fun seeing her, and her mom's Vietnamese cooking is some of the best I've ever had. A few days later, I took Eliza with me to see Matteo. He's 12, a boy, and his mom doesn't exactly make visiting easy. I had no idea what to get for him, but I remember Dad bought him a PS5, so I figured he'd like some games. I picked out Spider-Man and Spyro, because I'd played the old Spyro with friends years ago and it was always fun. Matteo's mom let us in, but it was obvious she didn't want us around unless Dad was there. She offered her condolences for our brother before letting us head to Matteo's room. Matteo looked surprised to see me, but gave me a hug and a nice to see ya. He was shy with Eliza, almost cold, but when she gave him the games, he did hug her. Then, of course, he had us play Call of Duty with him before we left. When we finally said goodbye, he hugged me again, this time tighter, and he told me he missed me and loved me. It nearly broke me when I saw his baby pictures sitting in his room. He looked so much like Ilia that it hurt. The resemblance was uncanny, they both looked more like my dad, or maybe my uncle, but side by side you could almost mistake them for twins. I haven't seen Matteo as much as Sean, mostly only when I'm with Dad. It always feels weird when his mom is there, hovering. Not long after all this, Dad came back from inpatient just before Valentine's Day, and it was like living with a different person. The first thing he did was apologize to my mom, really, genuinely apologize for cheating, crying as he begged her not to divorce him and promising that it would never happen again. My mom gave him a list of conditions. He had to break up with his mistress, work out the legal stuff with her pregnancy, move to remote work full-time, go with us to China for a month. And he agreed, to everything, without hesitation. I have no idea what happened to him in that hospital, but he's not the same dad who left. Then he turned to me, hugged me tighter than he ever had before, kissing my forehead and cheeks, and apologized over and over for hurting me. We had a family meeting where he explained that he'd been diagnosed with something called hypersexual disorder, apparently different from a sex addiction somehow, and that he'd continue therapy and medication. Mom's tracking his location 24/7 now, too. We all went out to a fancy restaurant for Valentine's Day, and since then, my parents really seem happy together, happier than I can remember. For the first time in forever, my home actually feels like a home, like the way other people must have it. I'd kept Ilia's ashes, a tiny amount his mom gave me. When I asked Dad about getting them infused into gems, he agreed without any hesitation. He found somewhere to have the ashes infused into 4 small rubies, because that was Ilia's birthstone. I put those gems onto the altar my mom set up in my room. Buddhism hasn't ever come naturally to me. When I was younger, the Buddha statue used to creep me out at night, but now, I pray at my altar every day before school. I started going to temple with my mom, volunteering, Just doing whatever I can to feel closer to Ilia, to peace. We used to go just once a month, but my mom loves having me by her side each week, so we've been going more often. I'm not sure I'm a good Buddhist yet, but I'll admit that doing these rituals, praying and helping out, is making things feel a little lighter. I don't know how much more I'll put down about all of this, unless I really need to let off steam or have a question that nobody at temple can answer for me. For now, though, there's one last bright spot in all of this. I'm graduating, and my family is planning a summer vacation to Kunming as my graduation gift. One of my cousins is getting married, and my mom promised to show me around Ilia, the places she lived before my grandparents sort of adopted her. It's been 8 years since I set foot in China, and I'm so excited to see my aunt, all my cousins, my nieces and nephews, and finally my uncle and grandparents, even the village where it all began. For the first time in forever, it'll be my whole family together. Everyone except for the cousin who just had a baby will be there. I know this summer is going to be the best of my life. I had to leave things on a positive note, even after so much pain. There's something bright waiting for me down the road. Update 4. I never thought I'd be back here writing another update, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. The China trip I was so excited about? It happened, and it was everything I hoped for, until it wasn't. The first 3 weeks in Kunming were incredible. Being surrounded by my extended family, seeing my mom so happy in her element, exploring Ilia with her. It felt healing in a way I didn't know I needed. My cousin's wedding was beautiful, and for once, I felt like I belonged to something bigger than just the messy situation back home. Dad was different too, present in a way he'd never been before, actually engaging with my mom's family instead of just going through the motions. But then, 2 days before we were supposed to fly back, everything unraveled. It started when Dad got a call from his lawyer. Apparently, his ex-mistress, the one carrying baby number 5, had been trying to reach him for weeks. She'd gone into premature labor at 32 weeks, and the baby was in the NICU. She claimed Dad was refusing to answer her calls and accused him of abandoning his responsibilities now that he was playing happy family in China. The thing is, Dad genuinely had no idea. He'd blocked her number as part of his recovery program, and she'd been calling his old work phone that he'd left back home. When he found out, he completely spiraled. The man who'd been so stable for months suddenly looked like he was going to have a panic attack right there in my grandmother's living room. Mom's reaction was complicated. Part of her wanted to be supportive of his recovery, but seeing him this distraught over another woman's baby brought back all that old anger. They had a massive fight in Mandarin, which Dad doesn't speak, while I sat there translating the worst parts against my better judgment. Tell him he promised this was over, Mom kept saying. Tell him if he gets on a plane for her, I'm done. But here's where it gets really messed up. I found myself defending Dad. 3 months ago, I would have been thrilled to see him choose us over his other obligations. But now? After losing Ilia, after seeing how much I missed by shutting out my siblings, the thought of another baby brother or sister fighting for their life while we stayed on vacation made me sick. I told Mom we should all go back early. She accused me of choosing his other family over her, over our healing time together. Dad just stood there looking defeated, saying he'd do whatever we decided but that he couldn't live with himself if something happened and he wasn't there. We flew back the next day. The entire 15-hour flight was silent. When we got to the hospital, I met Elena, baby number 5's mom, for the first time. She's 24, barely older than some of my classmates, and she looked exhausted and scared. The baby, Sophia, was tiny and hooked up to so many machines it broke my heart. Elena started crying the moment she saw Dad, not out of anger like I expected, but out of relief. I thought you'd abandon us, she kept saying. I thought you changed your mind about being a father to her. That's when I realized Elena had no idea about Dad's rehab, about his diagnosis, about any of it. To her, his sudden radio silence after months of involvement in the pregnancy must have felt like complete abandonment. And here I was, about to have another sibling who might not make it, just like Ilia. I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I asked Elena if she needed anything, food, someone to sit with Sophia while she slept, help dealing with insurance paperwork. Mom looked at me like I'd lost my mind, but Elena just nodded gratefully. That was 3 weeks ago. Sophia is doing better now, but she'll be in the NICU for at least another month. I've been visiting her twice a week, sometimes with Dad, sometimes alone. Elena and I aren't friends exactly, but there's this weird understanding between us. She knows I'm not thrilled about the situation, but she also knows I'm not going anywhere. Mom, on the other hand, has barely spoken to either of us since we got back. She's sleeping in the guest room and making pointed comments about priorities and broken promises. Dad is trying to balance his recovery program with being present for Sophia while not triggering Mom's anger, and honestly, he looks like he's about to crack under the pressure. The worst part? Eliza has been asking why I suddenly care about Sophia when I barely wanted anything to do with her 6 months ago. I tried explaining about Ilia, about not wanting to miss another sibling's life, but she just said it felt like she had to almost die in the hospital to get my attention, and now all it takes is a premature birth. She's not wrong, and that hurts more than I want to admit. Yesterday, while I was at the NICU with Sophia, Elena asked me something that's been keeping me up at night. Do you think your dad will stay clean this time, or am I raising another baby alone? I wanted to reassure her, to say of course he'd changed, but honestly? I don't know. The stress is clearly getting to him, and old patterns die hard. Part of me wonders if we're all just setting ourselves up for more heartbreak. Graduation is next week, and what should be this amazing milestone feels overshadowed by everything falling apart again. My parents aren't even talking about the graduation party we'd planned. Instead, we're all just existing in this weird limbo where nobody knows what comes next. I keep thinking about what the monk at temple told me after Ilia died. Suffering is inevitable, but how we carry it is our choice. I thought I'd learned how to carry mine, but apparently I've still got a lot more learning to do. I guess the only thing I know for sure is that I'm not walking away from Sophia like I did with the others. Whether that makes me a better person or just someone who finally learned from their mistakes, I honestly can't tell you. All I know is that this tiny baby deserves to have her big sister show up, even when, especially when, everything else is falling apart. Update 5. I graduated 2 weeks ago, and honestly, it feels like a lifetime has passed since then. What should have been one of the happiest days of my life turned into something I'm still trying to process. The morning of graduation, Dad showed up to take pictures with this huge smile plastered on his face, acting like everything was normal. Mom was there too, but you could cut the tension with a knife. They sat on opposite sides of the auditorium and barely acknowledged each other's existence. Eliza came with Dad, which was nice, but I could tell she was picking up on all the weirdness between my parents. The ceremony itself was fine. I gave my valedictorian speech, got my diploma, smiled for photos. But afterward, when families were supposed to go celebrate together, mine just scattered. Dad said he had to check on Sophia at the hospital. Mom claimed she had a headache and went home. I ended up going to dinner with just Eliza and my aunt, feeling like my graduation was just another casualty of my family's dysfunction. But here's where things got really complicated. That night, while I was lying in bed still in my graduation dress feeling sorry for myself, Elena called me. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her at first. When she finally calmed down enough to talk, she told me something that made my stomach drop. She'd been going through some of Dad's old texts on a phone he'd forgotten at her apartment months ago, the one from before he went to rehab. She found messages between him and someone else. Not just anyone else. Another woman. Someone named Jessica who he'd apparently been seeing at the same time Elena was pregnant. I thought I was the only one, Elena kept saying through her tears. I thought after your mom, it was just me. But there's someone else, isn't there? There's always someone else. I wanted to lie to her, to tell her she was wrong, but I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew she was probably right. Dad might have changed on the surface, but leopards don't change their spots overnight, right? The next day, I confronted Dad at the hospital while we were visiting Sophia. I straight up asked him about Jessica. The look that crossed his face, this mixture of panic and guilt, told me everything I needed to know before he even opened his mouth. That was before rehab, he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. Before I got help. I ended it months ago, I swear. When? I pressed him. When exactly did you end it? He got quiet for a long time, just staring at Sophia through the NICU window. Finally, he admitted, the day before I left for treatment. So while he was promising my mom he'd changed, while he was begging her not to divorce him, while he was crying about how sorry he was still seeing Jessica, right up until the last possible second. I felt sick. Not just because of the lie, but because I realized I'd been defending him. I'd been taking his side against Mom, pushing us to come back early from China, trying to help Elena, all while he was still being the same person he'd always been. When I told Elena what he'd said, she went quiet for a really long time. Then she asked me something I wasn't expecting. Will you help me find out if it's really over? I should have said no. I should have told her to handle her own relationship drama. But looking at Sophia, so tiny and helpless, I couldn't stop thinking about Ilia. About how I'd failed him by not caring enough when it mattered. So I said yes. Elena had Jessica's number from Dad's old phone. Last weekend, while Dad was at his therapy appointment, I called her. I pretended to be a friend of Elena's, said I was trying to plan a baby shower and needed to make sure I wasn't inviting anyone who might make things awkward. Jessica had no idea who Elena was. But when I mentioned Dad's name, she got excited. Oh, Mike? We're actually talking about moving in together once his family situation gets sorted out. He said his wife finally agreed to the divorce papers. My blood went cold. Dad told Jessica that Mom agreed to divorce him. He told her his family situation was getting sorted out. This wasn't some old affair he'd ended, he was planning a future with this woman. I hung up and immediately called Elena. When I told her what Jessica had said, she was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then she said something that's been haunting me. I can't do this anymore. I can't raise Sophia wondering when he's going to disappear for the next woman. Or the one after that. Yesterday, Elena took Sophia and left. She didn't tell Dad where she was going, just packed up and disappeared. Dad's been calling me nonstop, begging me to help him find them, swearing he'll explain everything, but I don't want his explanations anymore. Mom found out about Jessica 2 days ago when Dad finally broke down and confessed everything. She didn't yell or cry like I expected. She just got very calm and told him to pack his bags. When he started crying and begging, she said, I gave you conditions. You agreed to them. You broke every single one. He's been staying at a hotel since then, calling the house constantly. Mom won't answer. I've been answering just to tell him to stop calling. This morning, Eliza showed up at my door, crying. Apparently Dad went to her mom's house and broke down, telling her everything. He wanted Eliza to convince me to help him find Elena and Sophia, said I was the only one who could fix this. He keeps saying you understand him, Eliza told me through her tears. That you're the only one who really knows him. But I don't understand, how can you know someone who lies about everything? I didn't have an answer for her, because she's right, how can you really know someone who's been lying to literally everyone in his life? The worst part is, I keep thinking about Sophia. She's finally healthy enough to leave the NICU, but instead of going home to a stable family, she's somewhere with a mom who's scared and alone, while her dad is falling apart in a hotel room. Just like Ilia, she's paying the price for Dad's choices. I don't know where Elena is. I don't know if Mom will actually go through with the divorce this time. I don't know if Dad will ever really change, or if this is just who he is forever. What I do know is that I'm 18 now, about to start college in the fall, and I'm tired of being the one everyone expects to fix Dad's messes. I'm tired of being the translator, the mediator, the one who's supposed to understand him when he doesn't even understand himself. Maybe Elena was right to run. Maybe the only way to protect Sophia is to get as far away from all of this as possible. I just wish I could run too.